Hi, everyone, and welcome to Something is Up. In this episode, I sit down with Gayle Thomas, a British author, healer, and intuitive channel whose journey opened the door to some extraordinary spiritual experiences during a personal health crisis. Gayle describes how a connection with Christ consciousness completely transformed her life. The blissful and very loving experience was also probably the trigger that down the line allow her to start channeling TARP, an Andromedan collective consciousness that offers guidance for personal healing and for humanity's evolution. With Gayle, we talked about several things: her own personal journey, the concept of astral hygiene, the mechanics of channeling, and even the global shift in consciousness that seem to be awakening more and more people at a really unprecedented pace. Her perspective is practical, truly inspiring, and deeply rooted in her own personal transformation. So, if you have ever wondered what it feels like to connect with higher intelligence, or how to safely explore your own psychic abilities, this conversation is definitely for you. Enjoy. Hey, Gayle. Good
Hi.
afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm really good. What about you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Lots of changes afoot. I feel like shifting sands, but I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you very much for accepting to be on the podcast. It's new relaunch, and so I'm really appreciative of your time.
Pleasure to be here. Well, we've had some discussions in the past, and it's always interesting talking to you. So let's get stuck into some interesting topics today. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, I think we met or we started talking to each other probably or now a year ago, and I reached
Mhm.
out to you because I was trying to connect. I was trying to explore uh, not only the connection with entities that a lot of people might call extraterrestrial, but with spirits. My
Mm,
dad passed away a year
mm,
earlier, and so I was in this on this journey of connecting, trying to connect with him, right? And so it was a very interesting conversation that we had, and then we continued.
mm,
And it's always inspiring talking to you and talking to TARP. So I'm really glad that we're having this conversation today.
mm.
Let me start by saying, do you want to a bit introduce yourself to the audience
Okay.
and
Mm.
the mostly apart from your background is also how this connection with TARP started and how it was like for you to actually discovering this connection and developing this connection.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of my work and my career, I guess I've always worked in spiritual things. A long time ago, a couple of decades ago, I taught yoga and meditation, and yoga therapy for a bit, and then more meditation. And then I sort of worked as a holistic coach using hypnotherapy and NLP and things like that, and used to weave sort of yoga therapy and breath work into it. And then I had a cancer experience. I'm compressing sort of life experience into a nutshell here. But I had a cancer experience, and in my decision to try and heal myself naturally, I embarked on a program of, apart from some alternative therapies and water fasting, of a lot of meditation, prayer, breath work, mantra. And during that intense period of my life where I was sitting down to meditate, I had a Christ consciousness experience, which blew me away. It was extremely profound and humbling. And coupled with that experience, literally the day after, when I had a revisit of that Christ consciousness during my meditation, I also had the experience then of what I now know to be TARP. And so it came in through a blissful Christ experience, I would say. That was the door opening. And that happened because I would say the conditions of me or my consciousness were such that I was in an extraordinary amount of fear and emotional pain and desperation to heal myself, especially because I had fear of losing of my children losing their mother. So I was very much funneled in a kind of unique kind of frequency space, I would say, of desperation, fear, surrender to bigger powers than myself, because I'd already made the intention that this is the way I was going to heal, and that I had to humble myself and ask sincerely and make the changes to my consciousness that I needed to make to turn my illness around. So there was a combination of asking and really, really feeling that I needed to find the answer, and this happened to me. So the skill of communicating with my guides or TARP happened quite quickly, because I was in a very sort of unique space. I was in a kind of bubble within my life. It was during the pandemic. I was living in India. I had lots of domestic help. I didn't have the usual rush of moving around my London life and school runs and things like that. Pandemic and lockdown. So I had hours to spend on my own, privately in my bedroom, like meditating and being in this silent place without any of the pressures, plus the kind of internal heat that was happening inside me. And it seemed as though it was meant to happen when I look back to kind of things that happened in my life leading up to that. So that's where it left me. And I decided that I would integrate everything, the skills that I had both learned and experienced in my life up until that point, with the channeled or the intuitive guidance from TARP into what I do now. So what I do now is offer that kind of intuitive guidance or channeled guidance to people. And I train people how to perceive and open up to their own guidance or higher mind or higher self beyond the five senses. And I also do the hands-on healing where I allow TARP to come through me and do their healing and activations with people. And then more recently, through seeing what the demand was and how people were approaching me with the needs that they had with their own signs or unfoldings or symptoms of awakening themselves, like experiences of trans-dimensional phenomena in various forms, from lucidity in the waking state or the sleeping state, or contact experiences, or sudden kind of awareness of immense synchronicity or bleed through into other dimensions. I really felt that there was a need then to work on sort of safety and sovereignty of one's own energy or spiritual energy or energy body. And so I started working on astral hygiene, sort of something that I consider to be an energy 101 thing for people in their learning discernment and self-development with their consciousness. It seemed that everybody spoke about, wanting to go out there and make contact, or reaching to, do astral projection or plant medicines. And it was just, everybody seemed too keen and too excited to make that contact without kind of questioning, who am I actually speaking to? And is this, how do I know? And is it me or is it my mind? And, to a degree, I went through that in the early stages of me channeling TARP, like thinking, am I schizophrenic, or is this real? Or, so I just thought maybe we're all learning to run before we can walk. And, and what seemed to be new was the term astral hygiene, which I must admit I didn't come up with myself. This is something that I first heard Dan Winter speak about, astral hygiene or etheric hygiene, the hygiene of your aura, the hygiene of your energy body. But methods and ways to keep your etheric energy clean and sovereign have been around for a while, and they're in lots of old texts. There are various ways and methodologies, and so I decided to kind of research and collate the best things that I know that worked for me, both in my practice of trying to make myself well again when I experienced cancer, because I knew that was about etheric energy and turning my energy around. I knew I had to alchemize that and change it. So I had to get rid of whatever was toxic around me to make the body well. So I kind of drew upon my experience of being in sickness to being in health, and then my experience of how to keep the alignment from making my contact with TARP and keeping it pure and clean. And then, of course, in my work, working with other people with the healing and the activations and their stuff that they bring and whatever consciousness they have around them, or energy attachments, not to get the bleed through from them. So it's kind of like a practical thing that served me in many kind of ways and functions in my life now. So I also do that now, sort of teach people or guide on how to keep their practices or their methodologies so that they can keep their own energy body coherent and sovereign.
Understood. Before we go back to this one, because this is very interesting, the astral hygiene aspects, a lot of people are either very excited about connecting to this entity or extremely scared. They think it's demonic entities. If you're very religious, you represent a connection with this type of energy as potentially demonic, or if you believe in ETs, they're friendly saviors that are coming to fix our problems, etc., or they're here to abduct us. So there's a very wide spectrum of beliefs when it comes to connecting to this kind of energies or beings, etc. And so what you do in terms of educating people on how to manage their energy and how to expose themselves to this kind of connection is extremely important. But before we get there, if you feel like it, can you describe what was the Christ consciousness experience that you had, and also define what is Christ consciousness for you in your understanding?
I mean, it's quite an emotional experience to recount, and often when I do, I get tears in my eyes. So hopefully it won't happen now because I get embarrassed with that. Well, firstly, let me say that I was not a practicing Christian beforehand. So I would say I'm a spiritual person, not a religious person. And it wasn't necessarily that I grew up in a household where we went to church every week, or Jesus or Christ or anything like that was mentioned to me. From a very young age, I've been interested in space things and the idea of contact and things like that. I would say more of a futurist or spiritual person. And on this one particular occasion, on the end of my meditation, I just decided to add something on the end. And it was just an impromptu thing. Jesus, if you're there, will you help me? Okay. And it was the first time I'd said that ever in my life. And as soon as I said that, I felt this wave of love come through my body, come all around me. I felt this cocoon of I say his presence. Now, this is where we can get sort of tied up on the semantics of me saying his presence, because I believe that it's easy for me to refer to him as his because of my upbringing and references to Jesus being a man. But actually, at the end of the day, I feel that this is a more broad spectrum frequency of consciousness, but it came to me in a way that made me feel love and warmth back in a recognizable form that my cognitive brain could latch onto, an archetype sort of thing. But nevertheless, I felt this paternal energy, very loving, very humbling. The humbling feeling made me feel like I wanted to just bow and lay on the floor, but I immediately started to cry at my small humanness in this presence, and I did. Tears started to roll down my cheeks. And it was the most joyous feeling to feel that love. And I felt this kind of smile happen all around me of love at who I was in my small self, in my human self. It was something so majestic and so grand and so loving, not intimidating in any way, not intimidating in any way. It's just so much love that I couldn't. It was just a feeling that made, as I say honestly, it made me. The reaction was I just wanted to just bow down. It's just like, because there was so much love for the small me. It just felt like I was just so adored and so loved, but there was something so much greater. And that was how I experienced it. I have experienced it since then when I'd finished writing my book. I had lots of doubt about how to go about it because I'm not good at the advertising and marketing side of things. And I had a sort of meditation, and I went to channel TARP for myself, and it was a sort of sincere place of being vulnerable and asking. And I felt this energy come in again, and I said, I don't know what to do. What shall I do? And the answer that came back is, don't worry about that. I'll take care of that. Whatever you do, just offer it to me. That's all you have to think about. It's just me and you in the room. And again, it made me cry because it was so beautifully simple. It's just me and you in the room. Everything else is all love anyway. And, let it, I'll take care of that. Whatever you do your best and offer it to me. That's it. And it's just like so simple. But that's my experience. What do I think of it in general? I think that it is a frequency of consciousness, a very high level light. And I think it easily gets misconstrued, and we can run into trouble with the semantics around it. And any books written around it. I think that there is a very mystical current of energy that has run through the ages that has taught the many vehicles and ways of infusing this consciousness into human experience. And I think there were many mystical groups before you had the big set monotheistic traditions kind of hijack it or give it a certain perspective. And I think that there were many groups who try to embody these kind of practices and skills and ways of being in consciousness, the same that the actual living avatar, flesh and blood avatar of Jesus did too. I think he was probably one of many who had these skills, but they were quickly ostracized or squashed. I know that maybe some of these traditions went a bit underground and tried to hide away, but I think it's kind of the same tones and notes of this broad spectrum consciousness, Christ consciousness. So I tend to say Christ consciousness now rather than Jesus, but I actually felt an experience of Jesus myself.
I understand. Yeah. And I can tell you right away that every time I speak about these things, in most cases, I don't know what I'm talking about because like you, I've never been religious. I've never been spiritual. I am becoming more spiritual. And it was the death of my dad that actually created the need for me to explore what that meant. And I had a similar experience to what you described, but during a mushroom ceremony. And in that case, it was my dad that came through. But the experience of love probably was the most blissful experience that I've ever had. And that is my question to you would be, do you think there was the bliss? Because a lot of people talk about the blissful experience as the opening of a channel, the opening of a connection. Do you think that in retrospect was that experience that opened up you to connecting to TARP as well?
Yes. because they came through with a similar resonance of feeling. And that's one of the ways that I know that I'm on track when I'm guiding or when I'm saying what is coming into my mind in the channeling state, that the feeling and the kind of presence is a similar imprint, if a similar feeling, to the original one that came with that Christ consciousness experience.
And in terms of, just for people that are curious about what this actually means, what channeling actually means, what is the mechanic for you? How does it work for you? Is it an auditory? Is it the images? Is it a combination of things? Do you feel the energy and you think that your brain translates a message? How does it work for you?
I think that's a really good question, and it's different for different people. For me personally, it's easy to say. It feels like I'm in a trance, but I don't really think I am in a trance. I'm in a deeply relaxed place. I've learned it's very easy for me now just to kind of shift that. It's like changing a lens in your eyes. You can kind of blur it and zoom out. And I kind of do that with my consciousness. So, I think the more you learn to meditate, the quicker you go into meditation. It's kind of like that. I'm just deeply relaxed, and I kind of feel like I've fallen into a sort of a witness state, and I'm just completely blank. My mind is completely blank. My body goes completely relaxed. Often what happens when I start channeling is that my body I start yawning, and like the physiology actually changes in me, like the kind of impromptu yawning, the involuntary yawning starts happening. I'm very comfortable. I'm very relaxed. I occasionally have my own thoughts about the questions that people ask me, but I hear the answers that come. I've learned to relax and trust that. Sometimes I can get in the way of that if it goes against, if someone has said, do you think I should leave this job? And I'm thinking, no, and then Tarpa said something different. There's a bit of dialogue that happens, and I learn to just I have to kind of repeat it and get my answer, again and again from the guidance. So I'm aware. I can hear sounds in the background. I can hear if someone's closing a door or there's a car, making a lot of noise on the street. I am still here, but I'd say that time is slightly compressed for me. I can be on an hour long session with someone, and it just feels like it could be possibly 10 minutes. It's a really weird experience, but it's kind of like that in a dream state. Also, after a session of channeling, immediately after, I can kind of remember the questions and the discourse that has happened, but maybe half hour after that or an hour, it's gone. It's like a dream. You can remember quite clearly when you're laying in bed and you wake up, you have a dream, you're like, oh, I really want to remember this dream. You get up, you go and have breakfast, and then you're like, I know that I had a good dream last night. It was something to do with that. The details go and it fades. That's how it happens for me. The way it comes, I'm not so much clairaudient. There is some clairvoyance in it sometimes, but generally, sometimes a little bit clairsentient, as I can sometimes feel it. Sometimes I get the visuals. Often what happens is, especially in the beginning of channeling, they sort of help me along by using my hands to act out actions, and it's like a game of charades with me, and then the words follow. Or sometimes I move my head to make me get out the utterances, because I still have to this day my skeptical mind, which is, I get the idea what they want to say or the sentence, and I'm about to say it, and I go, wait, no, is that me or is that them? And so I wait and I wait and I wait, and then they start doing this with their hands, or they go like that with my head to make me start. Mm-mm. So sometimes they know I wait for that to start until I've got my confidence, and then the more we go into a channeling session, the more I'm just relaxed, and then I end up speaking just like this because I've just got tired or I've given up, and I'm just, But in the beginning, I'm like, I don't want to say it, in case it's just me. So there's always this thing where, and that's quite funny to see what happens with their hands, because they might be doing that and that doesn't mean anything to me, but it might be something like, I don't know, wait for the months to go by or something like that. And you're like, oh, that's what that meant. Or, you know, they'll
Okay.
start clapping before I've started speaking. And then when they start speaking, it's like they really, you know, they're telling the client, you know, your book is amazing, you know, yes, you should do that now. And it's like they're already clapping, or, you know, so they have
Understood.
ways with yes, no answers. They have ways of telling me yes, no, you know, so it's interesting. But I think a lot of verbal channels, it probably comes to them like that. I'm not so clairaudient, you know, sometimes I get the visuals or the visions with it, but yeah, that's generally the
Have
way it
things
goes.
have things evolved over time? Do you still believe that things are evolving for you as well? You're developing more of the clairaudience or clairvoyance or other senses?
Just really the confidence in the process, just the confidence in the process. Um, you know, for me though, I'm very into the sort of the training and the education side of it, and I think that's where I'm supposed to be with it. So, you know, I'm not channeling full time. I don't want to anyway, because time very much is compressed for me, and I don't want to spend all day where I wake up and I'm like, oh, it's kind of 6 p.m. and it's now dark. You know, I very much like to have time using my own brain as Gayle and channeling in that way, because I think that channeling is bringing something forth into the physical world that's creative, that is uniquely your frequency into the physical world, which is kind of channeling. You know, get the brain out of the way and let this kind of flow come through, and which is Gayle. I came here to be Gayle after all, you know,
Yeah.
and yes, TARP is a version of Gayle in some way, shape or form. I guess they're meant to be like this as an enmeshment, and it's a vehicle as such, that allows this guidance, which is helpful, to come through me. I probably wouldn't be so outspoken with people. Well, you should do this, and we recommend you do that. Otherwise, you know, except for close
Yeah.
friends and family, etc. But you know, I'm much more at ease and comfortable with my own creativity as well. You know, seeing how necessary it is for all humans to just let that come through. Obviously, not always worrying about taking it into an arena as such, but just to let that flow come through, because it gets you to where you want to be or need to be in a way that you may not even understand yet. It's a complete answer to sometimes a question you don't even know you've had, just by following your instinct or your inspiration to do something, to write, to paint, to move, to write an email, to read a certain book, to go to a certain place. So it's given me that kind of understanding that it's all part of it.
Got it. And you talked about Christ consciousness in general. What is consciousness for you? What's your interpretation? I'm not expecting a quantum physics basic based answer, because I have no idea myself.
That's a shame. I really
But
wanted to give you that.
no, no, absolutely. I've heard so many different theories, but how do you interpret it? What do you think you're connecting to?
Consciousness. Okay, what do you think I'm connecting to when I'm channeling TARP, or what do I think of consciousness?
What do you think consciousness is? How do you think TARP is
Okay.
part of this?
Yes, I think that we're all one. You know, I'm the, you know, the idea of one, and I think we're all the fractals of that oneness, experiencing experience from different focal points. And it may seem chaotic when you look at each individual and their kind of ups and downs and vicissitudes and the high points and low points, but I think somehow it all works out quite perfect in some grand symphony of love. So I think it's, for want of a better word, it's creator energy, it's God energy or source energy, experiencing for itself. And I think there are, you know, levels and layers of distillation into those finer focal points, and in a sense, I wrote a paper on it, but I can say that came from TARP. It's described as what we are is a box within a box within a box within a box. This brain is in a box, this avatar meat suit body in another box of layer of consciousness, in another box, in another box. And it's kind of nested layers, but it all is encompassed in the one. So when we're referring,
TARP belongs to a larger box in this,
yes,
with this
yes,
metaphor.
yes, and by no means is the highest form, but is of a form that is compatible with my consciousness, is a way of getting that bleed through to come into a normal waking experience in my life, and out there beyond. But I do understand from them that part of their mission, or the mission, is to just help others realize that they have that functionality in them too, to communicate across compartmentalizations within their consciousness. So the consciousness is compartmentalized, in the human state with our psyche. You have your sleep, your dream, your lucidity, your subconsciousness, and there are all these boundaries around them that you can't normally readily access. I mean, maybe our ancient peoples knew, our indigenous peoples knew, but there's certain ceremonies and shamanic ways of interpreting and accessing, but it's very much become regimented in modern day life and very much segmented off. And, the integration of this fluidity is helpful to us in our human experience, because we are from a higher, more glorious, expanded space. And it's helpful to remember this in our small focal placement that we're in. Yeah.
And so, because we haven't described this yet, so what is TARP? I don't know. A lot of people know you already, so they might know already what the answer is. But for people that don't know, how does TARP describe itself?
Yeah, very vague, actually. And believe me, I would love to be someone that can say, for example, like Bashar, I'm in a spaceship above a rock in Sedona, and I'm 300 years you in the future. But I don't get that. And I accept that because I can't bang my head against the wall, so we're dealing with something that's very vague, and so therefore is very difficult to pin down or explain or seem credible for in that matter, but the way I can describe it is they are a form of consciousness. I get a collective. It's definitely not an individual in a silver spacesuit on a spaceship. They are unindividuated, not physical as we know it, and I have heard Andromedan descent, shall we say, but I'm not given any location because there is no planet, because there is no physical form, or so no inhabitants as such to say. And they are very much connected with me and humanity. They are here to help, but they are evolved themselves out of the physical form. And their nature, I'd say, or their style is quite benevolent and overarching. If you think about their guidance and the way they speak, they don't get down into the details of what you should do. They speak quite broadly, broad themes. The feeling and the vibration, I would say, around what they say is quite high and quite benevolent. I don't know, how would you add to that? What's your take on the way they come across with their guidance? Would you say they're specific, or would you say they're broad?
It's a good question. I think that they can be both. So I've asked very
Mhm.
specific questions when I needed to know if I was connected to a particular type of entity or not.
Sure. Hmm.
But then when it comes to the guidance, I I don't feel that they give you their opinion. I feel that they help you develop your own intuition, follow your own intuition.
Right. Okay.
Um, um, of course, they explain what they are, and in many cases, they explain what we're going through as humanity, and that's so they have a different perspective, a higher
Yeah.
perspective of
Yes.
what's going on, and that might be generic, that might be an overarching
Yeah.
concept, right?
Yes. I have to
But I
say,
never,
yeah.
yeah,
Go on. Sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I have to say, I think it's all about what I'm comfortable with as well. So, I'm very comfortable with the connection as it is,
Mm.
and the way they come across. I don't like the idea of being too forceful or too prescriptive with myself, and I think that that is no coincidence. I think the energy or the guidance that comes through is I'm in alignment with that. And for that matter, very early on when I started to channel, I did get deceased loved ones come to me, including my brother and my younger brother. That was so it was extremely emotional for me. Um, but I'm not comfortable with that. Of course, my mother, she wanted to speak to my brother, you know, and
Mm.
my husband's father too, and of course, it's very important. And I did channel those messages. And then I knew, I just said, I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing that. It's
Mm.
too emotional for me. And I just don't want to be a medium. So I'm very comfortable with the kind of connection I have. I think if I looked for it, um, I could try that for people, but I don't want, when we talk about how do I know and discernment, and that's partly how I do that. I've kind of said no to things that I
You
really
put
don't want. Yeah.
you set your own boundaries about
Yeah.
what you can handle. Understood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm in alignment with, um, I guess, guidance that leads humanity towards truth and benevolence and light. So, I mean, that you can channel guidance that is disruptive, is positive, disruptive guidance can be extremely positive. It can be revolutionary. It can be extremely impactful, but it's not that. It's not disruptive. I don't think they've ever come out with anything disruptive, but I do have a rebellious streak with other things in life, and maybe a bit anti-authoritarian, for example, but I wouldn't choose or be happy with that if they was coming out with some, bombastic stuff. It doesn't. It allows me to carry on my life as a normal, as I understand as normal, and have a family and the rest of my life. And I'm very comfortable in alignment with their guidance generally that they give, and trusting of it. Yeah.
And you were talking about trust.
Mm.
Um, so how did you get, first of all, in the sense of, if I understand correctly, with under the framework of spirituality that
Mm.
you subscribe to, and I find myself in the same with the same, I think, framework. Do you think that you made a soul contract with TARP to actually for him to come through to you and to channel him? Do you think it was an accident that he came to you,
No.
or there was a
No, I mean, again, like words like soul contract, it sounds all serious and heavy, like there was an actual contract. Um, um, I think sometimes we just maybe need newer words or different words, but I don't think it was by chance. I think they aren't, there's part of me in that conscious.
you you feel familiarity in the connection?
Yes, an affinity, and I also did with the Christ consciousness, and that I have a feeling that I have other lives and other experiences brushing with that Christ consciousness. We, maybe even roots in one of these earlier groups of people that were training or initiating in this kind of energy work, consciousness work. I think, yeah, there are other footprints, versions of me in this kind of consciousness. I don't think any of that is an accident. I don't think it's, I think the affinity and the ease, well, I say ease, I know my situation of having cancer wasn't easy, but it was the archetype of Jesus and the consciousness of Christ consciousness rather than something else means that there was an affinity, some kind of schema set up, or kind of consciousness pathway or frequency, compatibility that allowed that kind of overlaying
Yeah,
of consciousness to come through at that
understood.
time. Yeah.
Basically, it was not Buddha, it was not Yogananda. It was a very specific frequency.
Even though they're even though they're amazingly cool dudes to
Yeah,
have an
exactly.
interlude with. Yeah, I would love to speak with Yogananda.
And
Maybe.
how?
I've never thought to ask, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an experience.
Mm.
And how? So when he came, when TARP first came, was it shocking? Was it, once you had the experience
Wow.
with Jesus, was it normal? How did you get to trust the? So you mentioned I for a while I thought I was schizophrenic, psychotic. How did
Mm.
you get to the point that you started trusting the
Yeah.
message, the energy, and
The feeling was never hostile. It was just my thinking brain trying to play devil's advocate. Should I just go along and believe this carte blanche? Or do you think I should try and give a reasonable argument here? So I would sit with my husband and say, it could be this, it could be that. And it really didn't take much time to think of, well, I had been meditating for years. I mean, it's like a core part of my life. And from a very reasonable, coherent, felt, experienced sense of what meditation feels like and the kind of coherence that I associate with that, it's just like, no, I cannot reconcile that line of argument, actually, that this is a schizophrenic thing, because I feel my body, the heart rate is low, my breathing is very deeply relaxed, I'm feeling in alignment. I've been working on my chakras a lot, which by the way, I really had been during my healing process. I really felt that was a necessary part of alchemizing myself back to balance and health. I felt very coherent and level-headed, or sane in a sense. And I feel like that generally over the years, I'm not someone who tends to over dramatize things or make things up, or I'm quite sort of what's the word? I tend to downplay things, because I like to be quiet and sure before I say things. So it just didn't feel right to even go with that line of argument. Although I had to kind of say it a few times just to be fair, just to be fair on myself, like to just put some cognition into it a little bit. What was the other part of the question you asked?
so how did you get to trust it? That was the question.
So the trust was in the feeling and in the recognition of their tone and the way that they speak and the message that they say. So as I said, I had a couple of interludes with other entities. We spoke about deceased loved ones. At the beginning, I also tried it in a forest with trees, and was communicating with trees, and that was nice. It wasn't uncomfortable and it wasn't difficult. There wasn't the same affinity, even though it's nature and it's trees. I did have a couple of experiences of feeling out of whack when I channeled in the early days when I still lived in India, where I felt completely discombobulated afterwards. I felt like I had to go to bed. I felt drained. I felt dizzy. I felt lightheaded, like I just got off a boat or a fairground ride, that kind of thing. Like, oh, I just need to be still and close my eyes. And I don't know what that was. Maybe it was just my body coming to terms with the level of energy going through me. But how I've come to know TARP is I don't have that at all. It just, I'm comfortable, I'm deeply relaxed, I'm deeply coherent, I'm comfortable with what they say. I don't feel too much pressure like I would have felt if I'd gone into the communicating with deceased loved ones of people, because I know there's a lot of emotion in that. You know, I'm channeling in a mode and a consciousness that I understand that is very compatible with my life. So there's no bleed through or impact on the rest of my life. You know, I'm not feeling emotional for the people afterwards. You know, I have compassion, but for example, if I knew that someone, you know, recently lost their mother and they really wanted to speak to their mother, I'd feel that pressure of, is this really their mother? Oh my God, you know, and I hope the mother said what they wanted to hear, and how are they feeling afterwards? They're probably going to burst into tears, and you know, it feels a lot for me. So I know that some people are very at ease and feel quite cool and collected with that. So the trusting has just been learning to understand their tone, their frequency, the way they feel in my body, and the words, the message that they give. You know, after a while of doing it, you know it's them, what's not them. I also had a couple of moments of insectoid kind of being, and it was quite overwhelming for me. And
Okay.
I just kind of decided
Mantis?
that could be. It could be. There was a whole legion of them in front of me, and it felt overwhelming. It felt like they wanted a voice, and I felt
Okay.
like there were like literally thousands of heads there. And it was quite overwhelming. And I just
Okay.
said, no, I don't know what's no, I'm not ready for this. That's happened a couple of times, and so you know, I'm just quite, you know, maybe I could be more ambitious with it. But I'm just, you know, just go steady. And this is helping me and it's helping others. And I'm very into the teaching side and getting the Gayle side through of the skills that I've learned along the way, infused with their guidance. And that's working for me right now. But I'm sure that I have many other levels to step up on my journey, and there may be a point when I'm ready to take in more bandwidth, but I like my bandwidth just there right now. You know, it's working just
Understood.
fine for me. Yeah.
So the two things then. What do you think? What do you believe, or not believe? What do you feel is the overarching message that TARP has given through you so far to your clients, to humanity in general? And
Hmm.
then why? So why now? What do you think it's happening on a global scale that there is? It seems to me, but also want this from you, that there's more and more and more people starting to channel, opening up their psychic abilities and experiences these kind of energies. What's happening? Is something happening specifically in this lifetime, in this period?
Yeah, I think there are levels of the way we can talk about this. I mean, you've got the kind of the age, the cycle of time, and, you know, coming to the end of that yuga,
Cycle.
yeah, the chaotic cycle, and moving into the kind of Aquarius. You can look at it like that. You can look at it as we're getting more energy from that great central sun. The changes that have been happening on the planet that have made it possible. We've got sort of breaking through from certain matrices put on the. Can you? What's the plural of matrix? Anyway,
Yeah.
that are on
Yeah.
the put on the planet. So we're sort of breaking free. We're leveling up in our consciousness. There is a kind of ushering in and returning to the kind of wider consciousness space. So people are feeling more open. They are picking up on more, and we're taking our baby steps to internally integrate, each and individually integrate what's happening to us, including coming to terms with our traumas and our shadows, and connecting it with our ancestry lines and our star roots. They are here. They're quite explicit. They're here to help those sensitive people evolve. Those that are ready to step up into it, and young people too, that are coming through more equipped in more functional avatar systems, nervous systems, to take in this kind of to understand this kind of level of consciousness. Hence the lot of the hands-on work that they're doing and the kind of guidance that they're giving to individuals. Why now? Why at this time? The more people that can learn to integrate their consciousness and heal their traumas, the more that are able to perceive trans-dimensional engagement, the better, because then we'd have this kind of rapid metamorphosis of consciousness on the earth, which is kind of coming anyway, but it's kind of like the 100th monkey effect, I feel. The more that do come to terms with this, the quicker the changes will happen. And of course, we're in a sort of a place now where there feels like a lot of battling and contrast and dark and light happening, the pairs of opposites, and we're ready kind of, or preparing ourselves to shift up beyond the experience of opposites, the pairs of opposites, into a more heart and throat chakra based consciousness experience, without the pairs of opposites, without sort of functioning out of the lower chakras. I'm going off on tangents all of a sudden, but that's me. But I think it's time. It's clearly time. And you said about TARP's messages. They have, apart from the overarching message of they're here to help at this time people perceive outside of their five senses, to help them find their way back to that remembering of that bigger space. They do have several messages which come out in the book. One is learning to lessen the differences amongst everything that they see out there, including people, like start to recognize the oneness in everything, in the people you speak to. So you and I are the same consciousness, just from different focal points. You're sitting on that side of the table, I'm on this side of the table, but the same goes for all other species on this planet. They speak a lot about that. So learning to see the oneness in the tarantula and the snake and the personality that you hate seeing on the news, right? Recognize that that's all faces of you, of oneness. So they talk a lot about that. They talk a lot about love in action. So that kind of love in action being passive and active. So in the thoughts, the intentions of love and kindness to everything, to every activity you do, to every person or every thought that you have. They speak a lot about the idea of channeling is not necessarily the way they're doing it through me, that channeling is living. It's just living with the animation of the divine energy coming through you. That's what they consider channeling. So living in that embodied day-to-day life, knowing who you are, in that nowness, this sparkle of Christ consciousness, if you like, that sparkle of divinity, that you are the God in form. You are the God in the meat suit. You are equal to everyone else, but you are that now. You are what you've been waiting for. You are that now. So live like it. Try to remember it and anchor it into your daily experience as much as you possibly can. So channeling then is just following that sparkle or the feelings of butterflies that come through you in whatever activity inspires you, whether it's a painting, etc., or a certain project, to start living that, like, for real, because we get caught up in past tense, future tense. And they're also, another message they say is about embracing the imagination, because that is the vehicle of the cognitive mind for you to channel. So what comes in your imagination isn't random. It's higher consciousness coming through in an archetypal symbol or visual that you can understand, even though it may not make sense to you what's in your dreams, but it's still coming through, and it's coming through as frequency. So trust, use the imagination, embrace it more. And they also talk about you can channel healing in your book. You can channel your own healing for yourself. You can channel your painting. You can channel your conversation. You can channel your book, your email, your meal that you're cooking. You can also channel healing, not just to others, but yourself, that you are that being that you are waiting for. You are that. So get on with it, sort of thing. Yeah.
Healing would be another hour of conversation, because it's extremely interesting to me. But very briefly, was the experience that you had with healing, so the first time that you had an experience with healing, it's called the energy healing, it's called channel in healing, during your cancer experience, or were you connected to things like Reiki or energy healing practices, etc., even before you started doing your shift?
Interestingly, yeah, not while I had cancer. I mean, I have done those things before I ever learnt to channel anyway, including prana vidya, which is a practice in yoga where you're directing with your attention prana to certain parts of your body. And I hadn't that more in my mind when I used to sit in meditation, like targeting cells and things like that, and transmuting their function. I before I had the Christ experience journey on my healing journey, I did all the practical physical things I could do. I just didn't do it kind of the allopathic way. I didn't have, radio or chemotherapy. I did a water fast, and I think that was a very big thing for cleaning out my body, the tissues of my body. And
For how long?
Just under 3 weeks. Yeah, so water only. But I did that with the intention of putting my body into autophagy. I went into a special clinic. I went to the True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California. And that was a big deal. I mean, as far as I was concerned, that was like a very big component to my healing journey. I did intravenous therapies, like high doses of vitamin C and glutathione, things like that. I did infrared saunas, the Wim Hof breathing, the cold water. I worked on my sleep, to improve the quality of my sleep. Obviously, diet and exercise are crucial. I mean, there's some crucial things in there. There were physical actions I took, but the water fast, I would say, was the biggest thing. I mean, to put your body in autophagy, and with my consciousness, I really found that, food creates a lot of distortion in your consciousness. 3 meals a day or whatever, and what you eat, of course, it creates distortion. And with that all out the way, things were very clean and light in my mind. And I went back to India after that cleanse and carried on with my meditation regime. And it was a very kind of high frequency experience, different after I'd had that physical cleanse. Yeah.
And what about now? How is now translated into your normal life every day, in terms of nutrition and practices, etc.?
Well, I'm still quite health conscious. I'm not doing it to the degree. I mean, I was watching everything I ate at that time, obviously. I mean, if I wasn't doing the hospital path, I had to do a path full time. So, I meditate every day. I still eat big, huge salad every day. I still do that. That was a practice that came straight after being in the True North Health Centre, because they're very much into a whole plant diet without salt, oil, and sugar. Like, I've deviated from that because I do cook with salt and oil sometimes. But I go back and I do that once a year as maintenance. I have a 7. Actually, it was 2 years ago I last went. I'm due for one. I'll do one this coming year. But I like going there just for maintenance, and I like the feeling of fasting. And I still work very much on my sleep and my exercise and all of that.
You're talking about the physical aspect. There's a mechanical aspect, even with channeling. And this is maybe another question. In the UFO community, there is a lot of talk about how you can interact with these energies. And
CE5, you mean?
there are protocols like CE5, yes, but there are also there's a famous book now in ufology. There is a book from Diana Pasulka, and she's a
Right,
professor of religious studies that came into contact with the UFO
wow.
tribe, basically, and she was studying the saints and the apparition mythology of the past. And basically, at some point, she realized that a lot of those mythological and past experiences of people recounting encountering saints and angels, etc., were actually very similar to what UFO abductees or
Abduction
experiencers were
experiences.
talking about, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
in the course of her research,
yeah.
she met with a couple of scientists, and in her book, she used pseudonyms for those scientists because they didn't want at the time to become public figures. Since then, one person was openly acknowledged to be Gary Nolan, who's a professor at Stanford University of I don't want to butcher it, but he's in the field of in the medical field, biology and cancer cell research, etc., etc. Another one, and she used the name Tyler, was a connected to NASA and other 3-letter agencies in the US. And this person was telling her of the protocol that he used personally to purify his body to be able to connect with these entities. And he talked about removing completely coffee from his diet, drinking a lot of water, doing kundalini. But you don't need it now. Doing Kundalini yoga, adding Kundalini yoga in his practices, being completely vegan. So it seems that there are some very physical things that anybody can do to align to the frequency that then you need to be able to connect, right?
Yeah. The yogis had it, and that's exactly the diet I had. I mean, the True North Health Centre, happy to plug it. They are vegan, whole plant food, not plant-based food, whole plants, and SOS free, salt, oil, sugar free food. Now, it's not like they're a spiritual institute, they're a research institute, and they research what fasting and autophagy does to the body in various health conditions, and they get results. They have a lot of data. That's their thing. But what happened to me, I can say, was greatly helped by that. And I can say before any of this happened, like ages ago when I used to work more in yoga, that I have had Kundalini experiences. Even before my kids were born. I had moments. I have been vegan for longer periods of my life, not well, around the time that I had cancer, definitely I was. But not now. I try not to eat a lot of meat, but that has had something to do with it. And of course, if you look in all those ancient yogic texts, those I do know a little bit more about than anything else. They're all talking about, purifying the body, the hatha, the two sides of the nervous system, like the Ida and Pingala, the nadis, and freeing up the Sushumna nadi, the central thing, and central channel. It's all kind of the same. These Kundalini things. This is, a Kundalini experience. It kind of all part and parcel, and you can clear a lot of the distortion out or work through some layers of it by cleansing the body. And it can also be done with the breath, even the Wim Hof breathing. That's powerful, man. That's like the holotropic breathing. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, even somatic release, I've had experiences with that, trauma release, and maybe this is years and years before my channeling, where I had past life experience come to the surface, and I'd start screaming and yelling, crying, and I'd have flickers of other life experience, but it was trauma release. And that was like with kind of somatic touch and massage. And I recently heard of someone having that situation by being exposed to cold water. There are ways and pathways in, and it's, I guess everyone has their own unique way and point where they're ready, and sometimes it just needs to be a certain method or a trigger point because there's a higher knowing this is now the time for this to come out and flush through, so we can clear this body and allow for the greater bandwidth of energy to start coming through if the vehicle's ready for it.
I completely understand it, because I had very similar experiences, and after I read that book, I was already in this quest to connect to my dad, so I actually embraced that protocol. I used to drink 6 coffees a day. I'm an Italian, espresso all day long. Cut the coffee. Now no coffee at all. I became vegan, then turned back to vegetarian. But for quite some time, I've embraced that protocol. Apart from the yoga, physical exercise, but I've never been able to do much yoga. But I had some
Kundalini yoga is good.
Yeah, I tried, but
okay.
The mantra turned me off completely. I was not a mantra guy.
Fair enough.
Consider that I'm an engineer by background, so all of this for me was extremely difficult to actually embrace.
But that the words are vibration, right? And especially some of these Sanskrit mantras, the utterances of the vowels on the letters, they are triggering and stimulating different parts of the cortex. I mean, but fine. Everybody's got their way.
And in fact, since then, I'm experimenting with everything, right? Sound and frequency, etc. But at the beginning, it was extremely difficult to really put myself in that mentality of trying those practices. But once I've done it, and again, this is what I'm conflicted, because on one side, now that I'm opening up to spirituality, I don't know what generated what. So I don't know whether or not
chicken and egg.
Me approaching the practices opened me up to this kind of experiences, or
just channeling your own process.
Yeah, or I was destined to actually meet those practices to then have the experiences. I don't know what
but somehow it all just ends up being perfect. Yeah.
Anyway, but it's great. It's already been an hour, so I don't know if you need to go, or if you can continue a little bit more.
I'm really enjoying this conversation, but I do actually need to go. We can maybe do another 5-10 minutes. Do you want to finish at at 50? At 10 to? Yeah.
Do you feel like channeling TARP, or is not enough time, do you think?
Probably not. No, I don't think there's enough time, and I'm doing that a lot this afternoon, so probably not. If that's okay. It's hard for an Italian to be a vegan.
It's really hard.
And for other Italians in Italy to understand that
Luck-
you're vegan.
but luckily, my wife is British, and so she started it,
Or else you're
and
just
so I
eating
had to.
fagioli all the time.
Yeah, following was what's easier. But yes,
Yeah.
I couldn't. Let's say that I've done almost a year of complete vegan, and but I
Amazing.
couldn't sustain it.
Okay.
Sometimes I go back to periods of being completely vegan for weeks, but then I don't like cooking, so I get eggs and whatever happens. Plus, I'm Sicilian. I love fish, so quite
Right.
often I'm more fishitarian than
Right.
vegetarian. But we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting anyway. Everything you said about cleansing the body and what goes in. I mean, what we're ingesting, not just with food. And yeah.
Yeah, and so are you perceiving that more and more people are getting these kind of experiences? Do you have uh, more clients
Yes.
coming to you saying, I've
Yes.
had this incredible experience, and
Yes. I mean, it's just not that I'm the kind of litmus test because, obviously people are coming because they're interested, but what they're coming with has evolved. Before, it used to be people wanting and hoping that they could end up making contact with their guide. It was a bit more straightforward, that wanting, and how can I learn to do that, or how can I learn to be a channel. And now I get more and more people which are or have or are starting to have more and more of these trans-dimensional or lucid experiences, and they're wanting to make sense of it, and then wanting the training to kind of as a support and accountability and guidance along their journey. Hence the creation then also of the Astral Hygiene course that has come as a direct result of everything I've been seeing. I mean, before, if you could look at something like that, a complete system such as yoga. I don't teach yoga anymore, by the way, but it is a complete system because it can work on everything from imbalance in the body with physical manifestation of illness or emotion or, pregnancy or anger, to learning to perceive and purify the body so it can overcome the pairs of opposites. It's like quite amazing, and overcoming that pair of opposites means that you feel that oneness, you feel that liberation, the moksha or enlightenment. So there are systems that are there, but in modern language or modern applicability, I find that the channeling training and the Astral Hygiene really kind of help and address the modern ways that people are coming forward to look at their situation or their life experience. And I'm definitely seeing more. Even at my local gym, Antonio, gyms are kind of known for people who are quite like, yeah, I'm into weights, and they're not really your spiritual set of people, but they've put on the gym schedule, the exercise class schedule. Now yoga's normal at a gym, right? And you get different kinds of yoga gym, and you get Pilates and things like that. Now they've put in sound bath classes that happen 3 times a week, and that's at a Virgin Active gym. And
that's
I think
lovely.
that really represents the time that we're in and the demographic, the demand of the demographic. So, things like sound baths are becoming like more mainstream and accepted. And I think that there's less of a stigma in talking about people who have lost loved ones and who have phenomena or communication with deceased loved ones. It's something more spoken about. The idea of plant medicine ceremonies is more spoken about, and psilocybin and microdosing and meditation is not so far out these days. And there are all these kind of alternative ways. Wim Hof is such a big famous person now, and his holotropic breathing and how it is known to shift through traumas and shift through emotion, so stuck emotions and stuck energy. and give that kind of feeling of higher consciousness. It's all kind of like getting more and more accepted in the mainstream. So people feel a little bit more comfortable talking about this phenomena happening to them and are more open to it, and they're perceiving it. They're now, rather than invalidating or suppressing that kind of phenomena, like, did I just see something? Oh, no, of course I didn't. It's like, maybe I did just see something. People are prepared to talk about it more now. So it's quite exciting and an interesting time.
So last question for me would be then, for people that are interested in actually saying, okay, what if I want to have this experience myself? How can I develop myself to open up to this type of experiences, connections, etc.? But I'm scared because I hear what I believe, God knows
Uh-huh.
what. What would be the practical advice to start developing a connection, to start developing an affinity, and
Yeah.
what do you say to people that are scared about this kind of connections?
Well, you can, if you want it, but you're a bit apprehensive, you can just set the intention to have an experience which is meaningful to you in a way that you are ready to receive, that doesn't disarm you in any way. So setting that intention, that it doesn't have to be something that's so jarring. The intention is quite important. And to start feeling into your own energy, I think meditation is always a good place to start. Start being comfortable with sitting with the eyes closed and feeling what's in the space inside what you know as your physical body. Start becoming familiar with how that feels when you shut off the senses. That sense of the witness inside is a good place to start. Start with who you are and what you feel energetically within yourself. Then you can start to, when you feel comfortable with that, you can start to try and become aware of your aura, your personal energy field around you, and work on sensing or becoming aware of you sitting in your own personal purified energy field that is just your field. And you don't have to make it big. In fact, I'd advise that you start with it small, but it is symmetrical and that it is smooth all the way around, and start to become aware of that personal field, see what's there. But these are the ways you become familiar with who you are and what your energy is. Some days you'll be able to feel it more keenly than other days, but that's a safe way to start. And there are exercises where you can, feel grounded, put the soles of your feet on the ground outside the soil and feel connected to the earth. That's a comforting thing, because the earth is strong and large and it has a very gentle Schumann resonance, and it's very comforting. It's a way to feel grounded, but it's a way of starting to feel connection and contact with nature, which you are intrinsically part of. If you feel comfortable, and if you have a pet, start to see if you can feel that heart connection with them. But there are kind of small but important and powerful ways to start. You don't have to kind of take off. There's a lot to take in this whole big space. But
And then on the other spectrum, you do also classes, you also help people working with the
yes,
energy and connecting. So just to
yes.
close, where can people find you, and what kind of support they can get from you specifically?
Yeah, thank you. So the best place to start is my website, Gayle, Gayle hyphen dash Thomas.com. I'm also on Instagram's TARP channeling and on YouTube. But you can write to me. You can book in a call. We can talk about things. If you've got something in particular you'd like to talk about with your self-development or experiences that you've been having or would like to have, I'm here. I'm here to help, and I'm here to talk about things. You don't necessarily have to sign up. But I offer things on my website, one-off guidance with TARP or healing with TARP, or the longer courses, the training. But that's how you can find me, and I'm here. Don't don't hesitate. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gayle, and thank you for your time again.
Thanks,
I
Antonio.
hope that we'll be able to do it again. But
Yeah.
for now, it's been an incredible hour and 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching. Something is Up is still at the very beginning, so every bit of support makes a huge difference in my ability to bring you more amazing stories and incredible guests. If you enjoy this conversation and feel called to support the channel, I'd be super grateful if you could just click the like and subscribe buttons and share the video with anyone you think might enjoy. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.